I personally think, and I think others agree, that physically showing up to work is important. So, Ms. O'Connell, how many days in the last month were you physically in your office?
The vast majority of those days.
Can you give me a number? I mean, it's so frustrating. I've never been able to get a straight answer from one of you as to how many days you are in the office and what is the return to work policy. So just give me, how many days this past week? And if it's 5, I'm pleased. How many days in this last week?
So the HHS has continued its return to work starting in April. We're bringing everybody back by the end of June.
How many days have you personally been in your office this last week?
Multiple days, of course.
This is not hard to remember. It's only 5 days. And if you dissemble, it makes me think that you've not been in the office and you don't want to give me a straight answer. And I'm speaking on behalf of the American people who are paying taxes and a lot of salaries, and they think people aren't showing up to work. How many days in the last 5 were you physically in your office?
We continue to work.
Okay, Dr. Califf, how many days in the last 5 were you physically in your office?
I was down in North Carolina Monday and Tuesday because the 2 18-year-olds that you met at my confirmation hearing graduated from high school.
Then give me 5 days. When there wasn't a family issue, go the previous week.
5 every day. When I've been in Washington and not on business travel, I go into the office at White Oak.
Okay, I get that. So every day you're in Washington does not mean that that you are here. So are you either doing business travel and part of FDA, or are you but if not, you're physically in your office?
Yes, except for family events like
Dr. Walensky,
graduation.
How many days in the last 5 were you physically in your office?
So I'm not in my office today, but I feel like I'm working on
No, not feel like.
I believe I'm working on site. So I have been I've been traveling. So I've been in my office 2, and I've been traveling for 2. One of them I was, in fact, in your...
So in the last month, do you typically work out of Washington, or do you work out of your home in the Northeast?
We're an agency at CDC of people
boy, it's really hard to get a straight answer.
On the job work. And in fact, some of our work is in your state when you ask us to deploy.
I get that. But let me read something from Elon Musk, who's asking Tesla workers to go back to 40 hours a week. The more senior you are, the more visible you must be. That's why I lived in the factory. There's companies that don't require this. When was the last time they shipped a great product? You don't ship great products by phoning it in. There's a perception that your agencies are underperforming. Now, if you're underperforming and you're not showing up, that is not good stewardship. Now, let me ask, because I understand that HHS has a policy which is allowing people to come back every 2 weeks for 8 hours a day. Now, do any of you have a policy in your agency which is different than this pilot program of only requesting 8 hours in the office every 2 weeks? Ms. O'Connell, yes, no?
We require more than that in the office. Thank you.
Mr. Califf, Dr. Califf.
Yes, we've talked a lot. We have a pilot program which adjusts every individual to the optimal working situation for them to be productive.
So that tells me that it's really up to the individual to decide whether
it's up to the individual, their supervisor.
So in your laboratories, does every laboratory worker show up every day physically? Because in a laboratory, you got to be there.
Well, Senator Cassidy, we're both doctors. Everyone who has a job to do in the laboratory that requires them to be there is there every day, but you also know that when you analyze data...
Yeah, analyze data, but if you've got a lab tech, the lab tech has to be there.
Absolutely.
So is the lab tech there every day?
Yes.
And I'm sorry to be insistent, but it's hard to get an answer. Dr. Walensky.
Yeah, the people who need to be in our labs are working in our labs, but I will also say that...
are they working full-time 40 hours a week?
When I have a data need at midnight on a Saturday night, people are working. They're not necessarily in their workplace, but they're working.
I get that, but if it's a lab employee who is only productive if they're in a lab, are they working 40 hours a week?
People who need to be on site in the lab are on site in the lab. People who are deployed to the field, deployed internationally,
I think there's a lot of
working
deployment,
outside the
but you've got 18,000 employees, and I can't believe they're all deployed. I'm going to finish with this. You're asking for more money. And Ms. O'Connell, you suggested that there's tough trade-offs that have to be made. That, by golly, if you don't give us money, something's going to be sacrificed. I suspect you haven't laid off a single person. I also know that you have the ability to monitor their at-home work history as to whether or not they're actually logging on. I'd be interested in seeing that data. But you've got maintenance people who haven't been employed for 2.5 years. And I suspect they've not been laid off. But you're asking for more taxpayer dollars, asking tough choices for that family at home trying to make their balance work. And yet it seems as if there's not a tight ship being run. I'm over. I apologize. I yield.